to this. So with all that jazz ranting about crap I should have said, let's delve into what was initially planned for AJ's character arc for the has-been Rise of Trakeena fan film. So when it came to AJ following being a ranger in such a sorts, he would be manipulated by Trakeena to be under her control to take down his team of rangers. This would potentially be a once good guy turned bad later trope of his storyline for the film. Reason for this was because in correlation to what was going on behind the scenes of the canceled fan film when I was in high school 6.5 years ago, and it caused me to partly rewrite the film due to those reasons and events, all because I was bothering some assistant principal of my former high school, who was one of the many individuals I wanted to participate doing voice roles for the fan film, but declined because I was bothering her and quote unquote whatever. I don't really need to delve in more on the subject because this was way back when. I'm not that same delusional acting teenager anymore. I have moved on to a new stage of life. I can't keep doing the same stuff like this, in which I have been doing since high school or middle school. Actually, I didn't do any of this in middle school. I had certain restrictions going to computer labs in both the middle and the high schools in Gaithersburg, printing various and lots of pages of pictures of actor headshots for these kinds of films, accumulating to why I wanted to make these Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan films or other film projects I would have done down the line, but sadly those hardships happened eventually. Man, and to think they thought of me as a complete nut job. Like me in real life, AJ was also an immature person, immature teenager. Some people were immature as teenagers once in a while. I've been there and done that, so you have too. As of 2017, I have matured over time. As of 2017, I have matured over time of what I once was with the stupidity I displayed then in real life. And when I started this channel and such on YouTube and those social media platforms I'm also on. Again, I didn't mean everybody. I mean some people who were as immature but young and incompetent when being that young. Anyway, after what could have been Trakeena's voice for the film abandoned the film, production on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy The Rise of Trakeena was delayed and was put on numerous hiatuses because many things. I wasn't focused on my classwork, the pressures of getting ready for graduation, and so on. Not only that, creative differences and compromises of my art was common as to why the film never got completed. So yeah, sorry Dad up in heaven, if only I told you more about the dark secrets to why the film never got off the ground when you were alive. Not only that why production kept getting halted when I was in school, I had a failing grade in software apps. A class in which I never liked or never wanted to, but it was one of the classes that I was forced to take in order for me to graduate. A class that was obviously graduate worthy. So even for the longest time, now 7 years later, I have been struggling to keep production on the fan film going and so on. This is where AJ begins to developing, if you can call it developing, as a character. He is my first fan-made Power Ranger to have a mental disorder. Mental disorders like anxiety disorder, which I currently have since 2015 at the time of the original video and now at the time of this redux. Mainly, my character has or had borderline personality disorder, a disorder that is more common with women than does with men. The suicide part and blah 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 is cut for the remake of this video. Carry on. AJ never had been loved by anyone or had love for other people. Okay, something not as akin to me in real life. You see, I am rethreading things that are struggled to rethread what I said in the original video. You see, I am rethreading things that was TMI in this old video and others excising whether downbeat thing I've said. My character began to have hatred and bitterness inside against Trakeena. So what was the use of that? And bringing his hatred toward upon in plea of Trakeena, and not only her, but for the Red Ranger. My Red Ranger. So yeah, AJ is the Anakin Skywalker of the Marshverse, as Trakeena is a female Palpatine. The Tony Marshall character initially for my proposed films, if were to be played by former Spider-Man himself, Tobey Maguire, roll with it, would be under a manipulative love spell by Trakeena. Based on this person's departure and absence from the film, that has affected the film to be rewritten in a stance. I had to develop a story arc, again, if you can even call it one, in which I had in mind to think about have the Red Ranger under her control, and as the Rangers would spend most of the film find Trakeena, doing Carmen Sandiego, but with Power Rangers, who would appear to be missing from off the face of the galaxy and on Terra Venture. I know, terrible story idea, terrible writing. I had too much going on behind the scenes at the time. Also, ideas such as the Red Ranger convincing Trakeena to find a soft spot in her heart, which is filled with nothing more than pure evil. Knowing the original character on the TV show, she never saw any kind of redemption. She's too good to be bad. Knowing her, Trakeena is a villain. Never had a soft spot, unless for Villamax in the TV show, but not as often because her goal was in the TV show universe make the Rangers and Terra Venture pay for destroying her father. I know I have been talking about Trakeena to death, so does For Lost Galaxy as a series whole. I know I've been talking from a nostalgia standpoint from what has transpired in the history of Power Rangers. Knowing her, she is the only female villain in Power Rangers that has never had a soft spot. Never did, never will. But the character is dead now. Well, in the TV show universe anyway. It's been over 15 years since Trakeena's revenge from Lightspeed Rescue at this point. But when I brought her back for this fan film universe and reimagining alternate universe and blah blah blah, I have been trying to reimagine her for these films and trying to make her a little not so much as full-fledged evil as her original TV universe counterpart. But I have to have her to be evil. It's the only way to keep the fans happy and enticing to see her again in anything outside of the TV show. But what was the use? AJ himself, of course, has showed a lot of disrespect for his peers. Trakeena's then possible dark magic, what would have been in the film's plot. Well, back then when my father was alive, based on how he perceived the look of my character, and so did some others back in my former high school, and the look of my character puppet of her based on his sort of, and also my father's sort of drunken judgment, despite the fact the character is dressed in the skin-tight black outfit themed after an insectoid, headdress based on prey-eating mantis included, and makeup aside, like I showed her, like I showed in her case study featurette earlier, her makeup shows her dark overall evil appearance. She's a villain! What do you expect? What do you expect she was? Some black magic succubus? Stupid. Villains in fiction are supposed to be evil. I understand from his religious standpoint, black magic and Satanism are the works of Satan and the devil. Well, Satan, devil, same thing. But he seems to forget villains in kid shows like Power Rangers, well, with some of the female villains from mostly the older Saban shows of the franchise. It's how they are. Look at Amy Roll's Trakeena from the TV show. She's supposed to look like that. It's part of her freaking character. I don't know what my dad and others had a problem with her look in time for the film, but that's just how it was. This is what I wanted for the movie. I don't know why my dad and others had a problem with her look in time for the film. This is what I wanted for the movie. This is kind of a problem why AJ was the same way toward her in Judgment, thinking she's some kind of a witch or something because of her dark nature? What? It's just not right. Later on, Trakeena in this universe supposedly would brainwash AJ to turn against his team and join forces in turn of deciding whether he should continue be with his Ranger team or betray and backstab them in will of joining her alliance of evil. Part of that influence of such a plot had me inspired by what had happened in season 2 of the original Teen Titans animated series with the character of Terra, which also happened in her comic book counterpart, by the way. Once was going to be an honorary hero, later employed by a manipulative villain to betray the team to join sides with villain as an apprentice. Or, of course, again, the other popular example, Star Wars in the prequel trilogy with finalizing Anakin Skywalker joining the dark side, becoming Darth Vader. You all know how that turned out there. When I did the original draft of the script for my 2014 fan film reboot of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy in its original pre-production stages 5 years ago, I erroneously originally wrote a few scenes lifted from my original Rise of Trakeena project that got abandoned at this point, like in a particular drafted but never filmed scene where Trakeena would destroy AJ's Yellow Ranger powers, destroys his morpher, bash his helmet. It would be obvious that in that time of it, an homage to how Bane did Batman's cowl in The Dark Knight Rises. You know, in the scene in The Dark Knight Rises, when Batman and Bane had their first showdown in the sewers, where Bane beaten Batman to death and bashed actually broke him. That was brutal, and it was indeed a harsh action scene too. Remember, in The Dark Knight Rises, when Bane bashed Batman's mask up, that's what I wanted Trakeena to do in my Power Rangers movie. Break AJ's Yellow Ranger helmet up, alongside Morpher, Quasar Saber, everything. And then brainwash him to be her evil Power Ranger, regardless if he has borderline personality disorder or not, which by the by seems to be bullshit. But the rough, hard feelings has to get out of AJ's heart and mind before what scheme of manipulation and plot Trakeena would ingrained into my OC would consume him for the worst. I would then even instead abandon fan film to have Trakeena be like Palpatine in the Star Wars movies, predominantly the prequel trilogy, like how Palpatine seduced Anakin Skywalker into the dark side. That would be how I wanted my version of Trakeena be like, you know, with AJ, or it could be with anyone to become an apprentice of evil in her alliance to destroy the Power Rangers. Eat your heart out, Rita. With AJ having been consumed under her influence, it's pretty much considered black magic, poisoning his mind with more evil, anger, hatred, and angst. Not to mention what I didn't mention in the original version of this video, resentment, bitterness, and greed. Which should have been Trakeena's doing, not his. Like how I wanted my scratch that. This is where I stammered and stuttered in the original video. Moving on. This cut out of the Yellow Ranger's helmet was used in my initial Rise of Trakeena film, but was a later version. That fatter one of the Yellow Galaxy Ranger's helmet, I ripped that up because it didn't look so well compared to the actual one. The next one is the helmet for the reboot and the current series of films. It's more three-dimensional, more angular, and more realistic. I want to make the helmets more 3D like the helmets for the Rangers in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. Like in that film, the Rangers helmets were three-dimensional and not two-dimensional like in the Sentai version. This would be a representation of an American movie version, if ever made, by Saban or Lionsgate as of 2017, or of any of the Galaxy Ranger helmets. Also, like I did with the Red Galaxy Ranger helmet, but this is yellow. Let's put the helmet on the puppet and see how it looks. No need for a Quasar Saber. Just see how it is without some paper-made excuse of a prop. Unlike the other puppets I have created for each of the Rangers, this back is actually covered and colored. How I did it was basically used actual sheets of white printer paper, and of course I've used lots of Scotch tape so that way the body parts won't rip even though they are made of matte/mount board. I know you guys are going to complain about why am I making puppets rather than using real living people who want to get into acting and costume. In recent years, even though I never wanted AJ to come back because of how ill-fated of a self-insert he was when the puppet had my real-life likeness evolved, AJ makes a comeback in the webisode series of my final revival of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy The Rise of Trakeena, now as a web series rather than a film, because everything I tried to do then was retconned later in 2016 and onward. And also, by the by, in the original video with, yeah, what I just did there with the whole Trakeena hugging me if I was a Ranger was pretty creepy. Everything I tried to do then was retconned later in 2016 and onward, this time with the likeness of actor Brandon Michael Smith, some former Disney Channel star. I do have plans to have a later version of him to be in fan cast in likeness of actor Michael B. Jordan for future installments in representation of what has become of AJ years later after portraying the Power Rangers while still under the influence of Trakeena's control. You can tell in the webisode Mistress Material of the web series, which is by the way on my YouTube channel by now at the time of this Redux video, there were many scenes retconned from what I originally envisioned for my abandoned fan film version for the webisode series. Yeah, but why are you?
I'm all pure evil, that's why. You got a problem with that? You don't know me. You don't even stand a chance against me.
Look, we don't have to know you, so you shut your mouth and listen to us. Stop pretending you're still daddy's little girl, and grow the fuck up! You first, you hag. How can you destroy me if you're still strapped up in a straitjacket? Stupid bitch.
You will pay for putting me here.
Shut the fuck up! I've had it! Just shut the fuck up, okay? I've had it with you!
Don't leave me, my darling. I need you.
Not in a single lifetime, lady. Never, ever. Hey, come on, man! You ain't coming here with that shit! Get the fuck off of me, man! Get the fuck off of me! Motherfucker! Once when I'm dealing with them, I'm gonna fix you. You understand me? Hey, come on, man. Get off of me. Get off of me. I'm gonna get you, man. I'm gonna fucking get you. If I see her, I'm gonna fucking get her. She's gonna be mine. Get it? He's ignorant. He's telling everybody that if he sees her, she sees her, he's gonna get her. She'll be mine. I hate you guys, man. I fucking hate you. I fucking hate you! Especially you, motherfucker! If I ever see you, your ass will be mine! No, he wouldn't! In final thoughts, the problem I look back on about AJ was that in concept, he was just a misguided concept of what I envisioned, what kind of character I should have made him out to be, but due to the fan film's production troubles back then and other issues in way, he nearly would have been the best character or the best thing to come out of my fan film to easily be a well-defined fan character where he wouldn't fall under Gary Stu, Marty Stu territory. In recent years, however, I realized as of this redux of the original video, I should have never even made a self-insert of myself if I were the one that should get all the attention, all the spotlight, all the screen time, and with every little single beck and call. You can tell then I was too annoying inserting most of myself into that film story. Again, a staple of why most fanfics suck. It was particularly the worst kind of project I have ever done, and actually looking back now, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy The Rise of Trakeena that I did back in high school, yeah, that didn't go nowhere. And especially until I canceled the project 5 years ago, it really didn't go nowhere at all, period. Therefore, I'm not so grateful. In recent films of the Rise of Power Rangers, AJ is completely removed, and thank God for your sake, the audience, because nobody wants a Gary Stu or Mary Sue type character. But yet in Star Wars' case with Rey in The Force Awakens and whatever episode 8, she's still around regardless if she is a Mary Sue and she knows everything about how using a lightsaber and know about the Force and blah blah blah. AJ is completely removed due to negative, backlash I've received from those I've known in real life before those I've came across in recent years later, whatever, if it's online or in real life. Another sad truth is this so-called Gary Stu of me had no kind of character development. At this point, I think it's best to say I don't want him around anymore. Sure, I may have had issues psychologically in real life, doesn't mean a self-insert character like AJ needs to do the same as well. Therefore, also, this is why now I want this so-called bastard of a self-insertion, Gary Stu, go to some darkened corner of the Power Rangers fandom's gatekeeping of bad fan fiction, bad fan art, and fan films, and let him disappear. Forever. Next we will dive in on discussions on the Rangers that I actually did include in the series that are far more interesting, but sadly underdeveloped and not as berated then as AJ. And all that starts next time when we talk the Marsh versus Red Ranger and leader, Tony Marshall.